Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
All right, we're all set for the party. I've trimmed the tree, hung the mistletoe, and paired all those weird-shaped knives and forks with the appropriate cheeses. And I plugged in the Bartesian.
Bartesian?
It's a home cocktail maker that makes over 60 premium cocktails, plus a whole lot of seasonal favorites, too. I just got it for $50 off. So, how about a Cosmopolitan or a mistletoe margarita?
I'm thirsty.
Watch. I just pop in a capsule, choose my strength, and...
Wow, it's beginning to feel more seasonal in here already.
If your holiday party doesn't have a bartender, then you become the bartender. Unless you've got a Bartesian, because Bartesian crafts every cocktail perfectly in as little as 30 seconds. And I just got it for $50 off.
'Tis the season to be jollier.
Add some holiday flavor to every celebration with the sleek, sophisticated home cocktail maker, Bartesian. Get $50 off any cocktail maker at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.
Welcome to another episode of Scottish Murders. Now I know that not everyone enjoys hearing an unsolved murder case because there is no resolution. However, unsolved murders do deserve to be told too. And so in this episode, I'm going to tell you a short unsolved murder case from 1966. And while this case does remain unsolved, there has been one possible motive put forward and one potential suspect was questioned. Now, we've all noticed at some point or another that murder victims, usually women, have their lifestyles focused on more as being to blame for their murder or their occupation, such as being sex workers, or sometimes just because they are women and should know better than to go out at night and have fun or walk back home alone after a night out, that sort of thing. However, it's rarer for a man's lifestyle to be overly focused on as being to blame for their murder and not something else. But that was exactly how the newspapers reported the murder of 55, 54 or 52-year-old David Martin McMenigall when his body was found at his home in Edinburgh on Thursday the 24th of February 1966. While details about David's murder, subsequent investigation or any leads were few and far between, journalists were quick to dig up as much about his personal life as possible, with articles in the Daily Record and Edinburgh Live spread over a 3-week period reporting that David was a twice-married, well-known man about town. But what exactly did this mean? Well, don't worry, the articles went on to describe exactly what this meant. Why this was relevant to David's murder and needed reporting, while such things as reporting his correct age was not deemed important, is not clear. But because of this, I am not able to report his exact age either. David Martin McMenigall was born in either 1911, 1912 or 1914 in Edinburgh and was the son of a blacksmith. David did not want to follow in his father's footsteps though, instead wanting to work in sales, specifically refrigeration, and so he began his career as a fridge salesman, working his way up to company director before starting his own successful refrigeration business, which was located at George Street in Edinburgh called Central Refrigeration Services. While David climbed through the ranks of the refrigeration business, he became very well known, visiting and befriending hotel and bar managers around the UK, before in August 1937, when he was either 26, 25 or 23, meeting and marrying music teacher Catherine Gardner from Edinburgh. The pair welcomed their only child, son Martin, 11 months later, and the couple and their son lived in a bungalow on Hillhouse Road, Blackhall in Edinburgh, where it was said that David would regularly have live-it-up parties, inviting both men and women, publicans and restaurant owners to his home for dinner parties, where waiters were brought in to serve, with one friend and attendee saying that David was the type of man who enjoyed life to the full. and another attendee and wine and spirit merchant saying that Mr. McMenigall entertained well and always bought the best. David and Catherine divorced in February 1959, following 22 years of marriage. But David wouldn't be alone for long, as a month later he married again, this time to a hotel owner living in Leicester in England. It's not known if David moved to Leicester to be with his new wife May, or whether he split his time between Leicester in England and Edinburgh for the duration of their marriage. David and May split up and divorced in 1962, and at this point David began renting a bungalow in Glasgow Road, Corstorphine, in Edinburgh, and carried on, according to friends of David's, living life up. David's last few hours consisted of dining alone at the well-known glamorous restaurant Les Aperitifs, which was a favourite of David's and writers and artists, and was located in Frederick Street in Edinburgh, arriving around 7:30 p.m. and leaving, again alone, between 9 and 9:30 p.m. According to a staff member, David seemed to be in good form, and upon leaving he said to the staff member he would see them sometime next week, before driving his recently purchased new Jaguar Mark X back to his rented but apparently luxury £6,000 bungalow on Glasgow Road, parking it in the driveway and heading inside the bungalow, where he lived alone. David McMenigall was found dead on the morning of Thursday the 24th of February 1966 by his housekeeper in his rented bungalow, having received severe and fatal injuries to his head, including a fractured skull. Edinburgh CID arrived on the scene and quickly began a murder inquiry, with a 30-strong team of police officers interviewing David's friends, searching the bungalow, nearby gardens and hedges, street drains, a caravan site, playing fields and farmland near the bungalow, with a tractor reportedly being used to plough the nearby fields and farmlands to try and discover any evidence of who David's murderer may be, or indeed find a murder weapon. The police also issued an appeal within 24 hours asking for any persons who saw any suspicious individual in the vicinity of Glasgow Road between Drumbrae and Maybury Road from 10 p.m. on Wednesday to 9 a.m. on Thursday to contact the CID or any police station immediately. On the Saturday, 2 days after David's body had been found, with detectives telling journalists that there are no further developments, David's friends and publicans and restaurant owners he worked with or knew began to be questioned by the police, who were, according to the Daily Record, probing the death of high-living company boss David McMenigall. Now on the Monday, the police would put out another appeal, a double appeal, as they had received information from the public. But first, over the weekend, journalists did their best to track down and speak to David's family. They traced David's now adult son, Martin, who still lived in Edinburgh, about a 5-minute drive away from where his dad lived and was married with 2 children, but he didn't want to speak to the journalists. It was too soon, too painful. Journalists did manage to get their quote, though, by tracking down David's second wife, May, in Lincoln in England, where she said, "I still can hardly believe this has happened. It's such a shock, but I would rather not talk about it." And then focus was back on the murder inquiry, when, on Monday, Edinburgh City Police made an appeal, anxious to trace a man who had asked a man walking his dog in a park, located a few hundred yards or metres from David's bungalow, for directions to Sight Hill, a suburb about a 37-minute walk from where David's bungalow was situated, between 11 and 11:30 p.m. on Wednesday night. Someone had also come forward to say that about midnight they had seen a black Hillman Minks saloon car, a 1947 to 1949 model with no front bumper, travelling along Glasgow Road on the Wednesday night David was murdered, and police were appealing for anyone who knew who this car may belong to come forward. An article in the Daily Record on Monday the 28th of February went on to say that this car travelled along Glasgow Road onto the A9 road to Stirling. According to Wikipedia, the original route back in 1966 of the A9 began in Edinburgh at the Corstorphine Junction in the west of the city, going through Kirkliston and onwards to Polmont, and then continued, as it still does to this day, onto Falkirk, Stirling, Perth and up to Inverness, with the original A9 section between Edinburgh and Polmont now being the modern M9 motorway. So the particular section of the A9, as it was then, would be where the sighting of the Hillman Minks saloon car had been, after leaving Glasgow Road. Were you living in or in this area back on the 23rd and 24th of February 1966, or knew someone who was, and maybe have information on who the owner of the Hillman Minx saloon car with no front bumper was, or who the man asking for directions to Site Hill was, as to date, neither the car owner or the man asking for directions have been identified, despite police receiving a few leads. As none of the leads given to the police could help with the investigation into David's murder, the case began to go cold extremely quickly, and the next newspaper article not being until 3 months later, on the 5th of May 1966, when Edinburgh City Police were again appealing for information. But this time it appeared that a motive might have been established: robbery. It was revealed by police that David's bungalow had been robbed sometime between the 23rd of December and Christmas Day 1965, 2 months before David was murdered, with clothing and spirit bottles being taken. The robber was found to be 18-year-old John Wills, who lived in the South Side, and he was found guilty of this crime in March 1966. 3 months after David's murder, it was revealed in the Scotsman newspaper that police were appealing again, this time in the hope of tracing 2 objects which they had since realised had been stolen from David's home on the night he was murdered. One being a 9-carat gold signet ring with the initials DM inscribed on it that had apparently been ripped from his finger, and the second being a 6-inch long and tall silver statuette of a horse. Upon it being discovered by police 3 months later that these items were missing, a sketch was published based on recollections, showing what the horse mascot, which was believed to have been kept by David from his previous car as a souvenir, being a classic car enthusiast, looked like, with the theory then being that David had perhaps disturbed a burglar on the night of his murder. To date, the horse mascot, along with a signet ring, have never been traced, and no one has ever come forward to say they have been sold them or been passed on by family members or friends. They just vanished without a trace. Although it would later be revealed that there might be a very good reason for this.
It can get lonely climbing Mount McKinley, so to entertain myself, I go to ChumbaCasino.com. At Chumba Casino, I can play hundreds of online casino-style games for free, like online slots, bingo, slingo, and more. Plus, I get a daily login bonus. It's just too bad that up here, I don't have anyone to share my excitement with. Woohoo!
Live the Chumba life. Anytime, anywhere. Play for free now at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
All right, we're all set for the party. I've trimmed the tree, hung the mistletoe, and paired all those weird-shaped knives and forks with the appropriate cheeses. And I plugged in the Bartesian.
Bartesian?
It's a home cocktail maker that makes over 60 premium cocktails, plus a whole lot of seasonal favorites, too. I just got it for $50 off. So, how about a Cosmopolitan or a mistletoe margarita?
I'm thirsty.
Watch. I just pop in a capsule, choose my strength, and...
Wow, it's beginning to feel more seasonal in here already.
If your holiday party doesn't have a bartender, then you become the bartender. Unless you've got a Bartesian, because Bartesian crafts every cocktail perfectly in as little as 30 seconds. And I just got it for $50 off.
'Tis the season to be jollier.
Add some holiday flavor to every celebration with the sleek, sophisticated home cocktail maker, Bartesian. Get $50 off any cocktail maker at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.
18-year-old John Wills was questioned by detectives in regards to potentially again breaking into and robbing David's home and murdering him, but he either had an alibi or there was no evidence to suggest that he'd returned to David's home a second time, as he was released without charge. John Wills died in 1987 at the age of 40. Interestingly, despite the case going cold again soon after the horse statuette sketch was produced and the police receiving no further feedback, it wouldn't be revealed by police until 1985, almost 20 years later, that the 6-inch in length and height motorcar horse mascot had actually been the murder weapon, with David's murderer having repeatedly hit him over the head with it, fracturing his skull. I'm not sure why this information had been kept quiet for almost 20 years, or indeed why it was revealed when it was. Now, despite me finding an article from the Sunday Post on the 27th of January 1985, which clearly said that David had been struck on the head, fracturing his skull, with a 6-inch high silver statuette of a horse, the Daily Record in March 2016, 31 years later, helpfully revealed, following them carrying out an unsolved investigation into David McMenigall's murder, that a metal horse emblem had been the murder weapon. Maybe they missed the article I found from 1985, which actually revealed that fact. However, what their unsolved investigation did actually reveal for the first time was that they believed the horse emblem that had been stolen and used as the murder weapon to kill David, which had prompted a sketch to be produced, had in fact been a classic metal horse emblem, specifically one that had sat on the front bumper of a Ford Mustang, a car that David had previously owned before he had bought his brand new Jaguar Mark X. So this leads me to the sketch that was produced back in 1966, which looked absolutely nothing like the distinctive Ford Mustang horse. So if it indeed was a Ford Mustang emblem that had been in David's possession and which had been stolen, then publishing the sketch that they did would not, in my opinion, have been of much help in assisting witnesses in coming forward with information about its whereabouts. I've included a link to the sketch and to the actual Ford Mustang emblem from back in 1966 in the show notes. Do you see a likeness? And if someone had sold or given to you a Ford Mustang silver horse back in 1966, would you have thought immediately that this was the same stolen horse that was being appealed for by police? So, did the Ford Mustang horse disappear never to be seen again, or was it the incorrect sketch being produced that allowed it to fade into obscurity? It could still be out there somewhere. So, back to the Daily Record's big reveal in 2016, and perhaps the Daily Record had simply just missed the article on the British newspaper archive that I found, which stated that the horse statuette had been the murder weapon. And to be fair, there weren't many articles about David's murder, and maybe they just wanted to bring David's murder back into the spotlight. Okay, great. However, what would have been even more great is if they had found out for sure and stated exactly how old David McMenigall actually was when he died. In articles back in 1966, David was reported to have either been 54 or 52, and in the 2016 article he was reported to have been 55. It might only be a few years of a difference, but didn't David deserve to be correctly aged? However, alas, what the reporter for the Daily Record did not miss or incorrectly report was to again draw attention to David's lifestyle, this time speaking to a former police officer who had been involved in the murder inquiry, who said that David was well known in the city as a man about town. He loved to party and was quite wealthy, and that he was often seen dining in the city centre after his second marriage broke down, and sometimes in the company of young women, with it again being stated that friends of David had said he enjoyed living it up and lived life to the full. I'm all for finding out what murder victims' lives were like, what they were like before their murder, but labouring the fact that David was rich, was a man about town, liked to party and have parties at his house doesn't really tell us anything about David, the real David, and not the wealthy party animal entrepreneur he was portrayed to be. He was a son, a father, a grandfather, a friend, a well-liked man who, as one of his friends said, was the type of man who enjoyed life to the full. Despite his wealth and lavish lifestyle, he didn't deserve to have his full life cut short, to be murdered and left alone to die in his £6,000 rented bungalow, to be found by his housekeeper the following day, and for his murderer never to have been brought to justice. If you lived in or around Edinburgh back in 1966 or know someone who did, ask them if they knew of David and if they remember his murder. Do they have a theory about what happened to David that fateful night? Was there too much focus on his lifestyle and not enough focus elsewhere? Or if you happen to have come across, through being sold or passed down by family, a 9-carat gold signet ring with the initials DM inscribed, or a 6-inch long and tall silver statuette of a horse, or a 1966 Ford Mustang silver horse from the front bumper of a car, then if you're in the UK, please call 101 or phone Crime Stoppers Scotland on 0800 555 111, where you can remain anonymous. Since 1966, circumstances may have changed, loyalties may have changed. There is still time to bring 52, 53 or 55-year-old David McMenigall's murderer to justice, as Police Scotland do not consider a case closed until it is solved, although the number of unsolved murders in Scotland has continued to rise. In an article in the Sunday Post on the 22nd of February 1976, it stated that during the period 1965 to 1975, while there had been 4,000 murders in Scotland, only 10 of them had been left unsolved, one of which was David's. 10. That's quite incredible. And it was stated that this success rate was one of the highest in the world. Still extremely heartbreaking, though, for any family member not to see their loved ones receive justice. By 2008, Scotland's unsolved murder cases had increased to at least 49. By 2012, Scotland's unsolved murder cases had risen again, with at least 93 killings across Scotland from 1942 to 2012 being logged on the newly established Crown Office's Cold Case Unit Unsolved Homicides database, whose aim was to prioritise these cases and review them in the hope that advances in evidence-gathering techniques, such as DNA profiling, could help identify more murderers, as had been the case with the convictions of Malcolm Webster in 2011 of the murder of Claire Morris in 1994, Peter Tobin in 2008 for the murder of Vicky Hamilton in 1991, and Peter Tobin in 2009 for the murder of Dinah McNichol in 1991, Graham McGill in 2021 for the murder of Mary McLaughlin in 1984, and Christopher Harrison in 2023 for the murder of Brenda Page in 1978. In 2019, it was reported on STV News that in Scotland there were at least 1,112 murders in the period 1960 to 2019 that remained unresolved, meaning the police believed they knew who committed these crimes, but no conviction had been achieved, and 60 murders remained unsolved, meaning the murderer had not been identified. David McMenigall's murder remains open but unsolved to this day, but cold case reviews have been carried out over the years, despite there being little forensics to go on. Police just need that one vital piece of information or evidence, no matter how insignificant it may seem, that will provide the breakthrough they need to solve David McMenigall's murder. Do you hold the key, or the mascot in this case? Next week, there will be a Scotland Then episode from February 1966, and the last Scottish Murders episode of the year will be released on Tuesday the 31st of December, and will be an unresolved case from 1985. After that episode, we will be taking our winter break, returning again in early 2025. Thanks for listening to another episode of Scottish Murders, the twice award shortlisted fortnightly podcast that brings to light the stories of victims and their relentless pursuit for justice. If this case has captivated you, then don't forget to tell a friend to listen or check out scottishmurders.com so together we can share more Scottish Murders. Until next time, I've been your host, Dawn.
Scottish Murders is a production of Clurin Ton.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
All right, we're all set for the party. I've trimmed the tree, hung the mistletoe, and paired all those weird-shaped knives and forks with the appropriate cheeses. And I plugged in the Bartesian.
Bartesian?
It's a home cocktail maker that makes over 60 premium cocktails, plus a whole lot of seasonal favorites, too. I just got it for $50 off. So, how about a Cosmopolitan or a mistletoe margarita?
I'm thirsty.
Watch. I just pop in a capsule, choose my strength, and...
Wow, it's beginning to feel more seasonal in here already.
If your holiday party doesn't have a bartender bartender, then you become the bartender. Unless you've got a Bartesian, because Bartesian crafts every cocktail perfectly in as little as 30 seconds. And I just got it for $50 off.
'Tis the season to be jollier.
Add some holiday flavor to every celebration with the sleek, sophisticated home cocktail maker, Bartesian. Get $50 off any cocktail maker at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.